They're a really cool looking building. I like them. They had like orange ones, they had brown ones, white ones, and you can see them sometimes for 35 kilometers away. I was initially attracted by the sort of architecture and the color of them, but then as I was doing these, became aware they're tearing them down as quickly as I'm finding them. This was like 15 years ago. So then I took a greater appreciation of them and decided to photograph all of them before they're gone. 239 in Saskatchewan. I think there's one left that I haven't been to because it's on private property now. Many of them have already been torn down. Most recently, Simi, Saskatchewan, right by where I live, they just tore that one down. So this is the Saskatchewan wheat pool grain elevator. It was built in 1953, and when they closed this rail line in 1996, the Saskatchewan wheat pool abandoned it. This is actually one of the more popular ones because it's got the Saskatchewan wheat pool logo, and the one over here has the federal logo. The Federal Grain Elevator Company closed in the early 70s, and so you don't see any of them anymore. So this is like two different historical buildings in one place. And then once they abandoned this rail line in 1996, these ones here were bought by the train company that now does tours on trains out here. So people can actually come out to Horizon and tour them when they take one of those train rides. When they rerouted Highway 13 about 5 kilometers away, so this would I think would have been in the 50s or 60s. Because the highway skipped this town, it slowly died because there wasn't any traffic coming through anymore. The one thing I find out from a lot of towns, like this one right now, Horizon, for a lot of these towns, once the grain elevator shut down, it almost doomed most towns and actually doomed a lot of them. The farmers would come into town, they would do their grocery shopping, fill up on gas, hang out at the local pub. During that time, with no grain elevator, they would take their grain to the next town and the town would die. And it kind of doomed a lot of places here. When I come to these ghost towns, and you can look around this town, there's like streets that are grown over now. There's buildings, foundations that you can see. For a lot of people, they've spent decades or their whole life in these places. So every sidewalk, every road is kind of like for somebody else, their entire life history here. The church over there is closed. The gas station has been abandoned for decades. So there's not really even any commercial businesses, anything here. It's just one residence, it looks like. As far as like the really old ones in Saskatchewan, they're usually the ones that are remaining are like the federal 1922s. There's not very many really old ones left anymore, unfortunately. A lot of the grain elevators, they built these annexes about 50, 60 years ago to be able to increase the capacity which they can hold the grain. And as you can see, they're also easy to fall apart because they hold an awful lot of weight in there. And it must have just absolutely been a lot of pressure on these things because they're all collapsed now. But the building itself is in great shape. They're a bit of a expense. They're a health hazard. They attract rats and other things. They're hard to maintain. However, some places in Saskatchewan have preserved them, like the Saskatoon Museum in Moose Jaw. There's a town just north of Saskatoon that saved their grain elevator. So there are some being saved. So I take comfort in that. Back in the old days when I lived in Banff and had come out here in 2003, I didn't even have a cell phone. So you had to look for the tall buildings in the distance. So I just traveled on the highway. Then oftentimes, truck comes by, I would just talk to the farmer. And they would either not interested, or they'd spend 2 hours telling me every story they possibly could, and it was kind of enjoyable. I wish I would have recorded some of them. I started because I keep getting these emails from people asking me, where's this at? Where's this at? What, these grain elevators. So I decided I'm just going to start putting them on a map and put them on my website so that other people can drive around and go find them without having to incur the hardship of getting stuck on grid roads that turn into mud roads and getting disappointed when they find out they can't find these grain elevators because they're gone. So if they exist, they're on my map. My main thing was, first of all, make people aware that they do still exist, but also make them aware that they're disappearing fast. Not only they're disappearing, but a lot of them, they're modifying them to the point they're unrecognizable. So if you wanted to see them, now's the time.